And what will the rejigging of the CFA franc mean for trade within the region? I'm being joined by a trade expert, John Isemede. He joins us from our studios downtown Custom Street. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Isemede.
Good afternoon.
Now, CFA franc now to be called ECO, but still pegged to the euro. As a trade expert, are you happy with this development? The change from CFA to ECO appears to be a mere change of name, since the CFA was already linked to the euro, right?
Thank you. The CFA is not a new phenomenon to any of us. The CFA was introduced as far back as 1941 by the French to run the colonial office. And it was introduced for the West African and Central African soldiers during the First World War, and for students in University de Cheikh Anta Diop, now University of Dakar. The CFA has been the property of France since 1941.
All right, so ECOWAS has a plan for a common currency, and there have been discussions about it for over a decade. How does this development fit into the ECOWAS agenda for common currency?
Thank you very much. ECOWAS have been discussing of a common currency as far back as inception of ECOWAS in 1975. And the Francophone countries have never been part of the common currency. In our interview we had last year, I made it clear that West Africa is not ready for a common currency. If we say two currencies that will run parallel, and after a while when France will be ready to surrender the CFA, then we can talk of a common currency. At the moment, we have Nigeria, Ghana, Gambia, Liberia, and Guinea talking of the West African currency, with an office in Ghana, which is the West African Monetary Institute. The Francophone country has never been, because that currency, the CFA, introduced in 1941. By 1945, it was redenominated. By 1948, it was unilaterally devalued by France. By 1959, the central bank was opened. The BCR was opened in Lomé. And because of the skirmishes in Lomé in 1962, let us not go back to history of surveillance Olympic, it was taken to Dakar. That was how Mali pulled out. Mauritania later pulled out. But today we have French-speaking countries. And in 1995, Guinea-Bissau surrendered their currency and became part of the CFA. And we can equally tell you what happened in 1994 when France unilaterally devalued the CFA currency. So the CFA is still the property of France. And what we have are currency centers. In Nigeria, we have Godfrey Central Bank, headed by Godwin Emefiele. In Ghana, we have the Bank of Ghana, headed by Ernest Addison, and Jammeh in Gambia, which we don't have in the Francophone. If they now say they want to join, the first thing is that, is there any platform? Do they have a central bank? Because what they have is the currency center. Secondly, are they in charge of their exchange rate, the interest rate? These things are still being decided by France. If we now say we want to pull out and have our own currency and have our own monetary policy, then we will be able to, because Central Bank of countries have their regulation. Even in West Africa, we have a criteria, the convergence, that your interest rate must not be more than 8%. Foreign reserve or tax to GDP must not be more than 20%. But in Nigeria, tax to GDP is only 6%. That your foreign reserve must be to a certain level and all that. Is the Francophone ready to go to all that hog? If they now say they want to join the Anglophone and the Lusophone, that's already put a system in place in Ghana. I think my own suggestion is that we are going back to the drawing board.
Now, now let's look at the AFCTA that was just signed. Will this new move facilitate AFCTA in any way?
We have an existing team or members or countries talking of the single currency. And the office in Ghana was opened as far back as 2000, which is almost 20 years ago. And the CFA is just trying to, are they going to run, these are questions, are they going to run a parallel arm or they are joining the ECO? If you now say they want to change the CFA to ECO, the Anglophone has already adopted the ECO. And what we were promised that by January next year, which is few days to come, we will now be using the ECO in West Africa. I approached the central bank and some other banks in West Africa. Are we now saying that by January 2020, we will no longer use the Naira? But a few weeks ago, the Minister of Finance came up and they said it's not possible. And if you go back to our history and archive what I said 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 years ago, even a few months ago, that the West Africa is not ready for a single currency. Because the criteria, the convergence and all that, we have not been able to meet the rules put in place. And not only that, we don't even have information about ourselves. If the Francophone now want to join, alongside with the only existing power, which is Quebec, that is the Lusophone, it's a welcome development. But they first of all have to establish a central bank, because you cannot use a currency center to run alongside with Nigeria with all the things we are doing with the World Bank and the IMF.
Now, in all that you have, okay.
Based on our foreign and trade policy.
Well, Mr. Semede, in all that you have said,
in Nigeria, in Ghana,
Mr. Semede, in all that you have said, what are the prospects of ECOWAS common currency in the next few years?
All right, the common currency, as I've suggested, those who are running the WAMI and the West Africa Monetary Institute in Ghana can take the lead, like the way it was introduced during the days of the European Union, the EEC, now the EU. We cannot, at the moment, after 20 years, that the CFA that belongs to France will just be just sitting like that. First and foremost, we should understand, Nigeria and Ghana does not have the same foreign trade and economic diplomacy. Business between Nigeria and Ghana is import and export. Business between Nigeria and Benin Republic or Senegal is import and export. Business between Cote d'Ivoire and Senegal or Ivory Coast, Mali is arrival, because they have one common central bank, they don't go to the clearing house. These are the issues we should look at, not the Francophone is talking of jettisoning the CFA. What of the bank? What of all the agreement under the Lioma? What of the OADA? An agreement, because in Africa we have 54 countries, 42 different currencies, out of which only the CFA is convertible. The CFA in West Africa can be used in Central Africa, but Naira cannot be used in Ghana. That is why we are coming together and talking of a common currency. And the Francophone country has never really been part of it. Now that they want to come in, we are going back to the drawing board.
I thank you very much for sharing your thoughts there, Mr. John Semede. Mr. Semede is a trade expert. And the International Monetary Fund has approved a 3-year, $2.9 billion financing package to support Ethiopia's economic reform program. The agreement, supported by the fund's extended credit facility and extended fund facility, aims to support the authorities' implementation of their ambitious reform agenda and catalyze concessional donor financing. The Ethiopian Economic Reform Program would focus on addressing the foreign exchange shortage and transitioning to a more flexible exchange rate regime while working to strengthen oversight and management of state-owned enterprises. It would also work to free up domestic revenue for poverty-reducing and essential infrastructure spending, financial sector reforms to support private investment, and modernize the monetary policy framework and strengthening of the supervisory framework and financial safety nets. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed pledged to undertake economic reforms when he took office last year, with a focus on leveraging private sector investment to help provide jobs for unemployed youth among the nation's 100 million people. And that's it on the program. Thank you for watching. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago.